Hi, this is Nancy Ralsima with Quilting with Nancy. Thank you for joining me. We are in the fifth part of the Winter Blues quilt. Good portion of it is behind me. We've taken some time to look at the design, color options, foundation piecing with add an eighth ruler, making these really small seams because it's a very detailed piecing. Then we did some quilting, so that's what we did last time. And the nice thing about doing the quilting with this type of quilt, because our next step is going to be doing the quilt as you go section of it. Boy, that seemed like an awful lot of words there. Okay. But we did the quilting one block at a time so that we can do it with the easy sashings quilt as you go. Keep in mind, you could make the entire quilt top and have it quilted regular, but this is for those people that want to get the project done themselves and not have to manhandle a really large quilt into their sewing machine. So we have already done the quilting. Now we're going to talk about the sashings. So here is the kind of directions for the sashings. First, you're going to take, and these are going to be for the front sashings. These are going to be cut 2 inches wide, and in this case, 12.5 inches, because that's how my blocks finished up, adding the extra, can you see it there? That little bit extra of the batting here. I think you can see it better down here. So we trim the blocks so that technically from the points to the edge are a 1/2 inch because we will have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I cut mine 12.5. Now you might need to cut yours bigger or smaller depending on how yours all turn out. All right. So those are for the front. Then for the back of the quilt, the back sashings, again, you're going to cut them the same size, 2 inches by 12.5 in this case. You're going to then fold them in half. Then with that half fold up a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We want a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the back sashings. And then I like to give them a little bit of a spray sizing, of course, so then they're really nice and flat and secure. Then you're going to take those sashings and you are going to pin them. Oops, let's not make it too confusing underneath. You're going to pin it to the quilt with the front, the solid one on the front, and on the back is the piece with the 1/2 inch seam, the 1/2 inch fold. Okay, now I have already stitched these and I want to show you 1/2 inch seam allowance. I feel like I need to say that 99 times. The assembly with the easy sashing is done with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I did leave the pins in these because I want to talk to you a little bit about the pinning of it. So on this piece, you see that I've got lots and lots of pins because these are my normal, like my glass head pins, these ones, or these other ones with the silicone tip. When you're using those pins, it is very difficult to get it all the way through to the back because you've got batting and backing in quilt top and then the sashing and the sashing. So if you're going to use regular small pins, I recommend that you pin some of them just to the front of the quilt and then other ones just to the back so that this pin is not having to go through all of the layers, because when you go through all of the layers with a small pin like this, do you see how kind of bumpy he is? So if you have an option, I would recommend using some longer pins. Now, I'm not usually a big fan of longer pins, to tell you the truth. So these ones, what is that, maybe 2 inches? Let's compare it to my normal. That is my normal clover glass head pin, the one with the white head. This is a bigger one. I do think it's a clover, and they might call it a patchwork pin, but I'm going to say that's at least 2 inches long. Using those longer pins to put the sashings, to pin the sashings, or these big, huge butterfly ones, I got to tell you what I would not use. Let me see. Do I have any here? I don't have any within arm's length, but those ones with the ginormous yellow head, I wouldn't use those. But these with the butterflies on them or the flowers on them or these extra long patchwork pins, these are going to work really well. You'll be able to get through all the layers. All right. So these have both been sewn on both sides because in this case, I'm going to add some triangles to it. I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay. And then after you have done the sewing of them, so you see here, it's got the sashings on it. the back sashing. This is the front sashing. You're going to press out the front sashing, give it a little bit of spray sizing so everything will stay in place. Now, if everything has gone according to plan, fingers crossed, all that kind of stuff, you're going to be able to see some of your points. And I see this one's really good. This one here, he's really good. This one, yeah, I lost a little bit. Now, if that kind of thing bothers you, I don't know what to tell you. You're just not going to be able to make it perfect. That to me is close enough. I am totally happy with that. So with this easy sashing, trimming it that 1/4 of an inch bigger, you can't watch the points that you might watch if you're doing a traditional sashing. So just keep that in mind. With the 1/2 inch, yeah, you might lose. Let me bring that up there. Yeah, I don't think that's going to bother anybody, honestly, but just know that you might lose some of those. So after you have sewn this together, then you're going to take another block, which really I should have another block here. I know that I do. Okay, I've got to get into a tote here a second, so excuse me for the delay. There, all right. You're going to take another block, whatever the design is asking for, and you're going to flip that over onto it. You're going to pin just the front sashing to this block. And with this, you could use the smaller pins. You don't need to use your big ones because you don't have to go all the way through. You only have to attach this front sashing just to the batting. So I don't even make the pins go all the way through when I'm doing this. But I would put at least 5 pins in here. Then you're going to sew this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then it will look like this. So on the front, here they are, the two sewn together. Oh, talking about missing points. Look at that one. Yeah, I lost a point there. Oh, well, life moves on. That's how I feel about it. This one's pretty good. This one's pretty good. That one's awesome. That one's awesome. But this one, yeah, I lost it. Oh, well, life happens. So you're going to press that out. And like I talked about last time, I like how the sashing and the background of this quilt are the same fabric. So it almost makes these blocks look like they're floating. I just think that's kind of cool. It's just one of the options. Then you're going to take the heat press batting together. So this is what it looks like. Comes on a roll like this. What it is a tricot interfacing, which if you're into being a seamstress and you want to make garments that have a little stretch to it, this is the kind of interfacing you would use. And it's a fusible, so it's got a bumpy on the backside. And it is cut 3/4 inches wide. Because when you press these two 1/2 inch seam allowances, it is going to fill 1 inch. So those battings come right together. They're butt right together. And then you attach them with this fusible interfacing. All right. And then cut that off. And you will use this on all of your seams. We've got a lot more seams to go. So this one is a 10-yard roll. I do believe that would be enough to do this queen size quilt, but it wouldn't hurt to get 2 rolls just in case. All right. So that is going to secure that. Now it's time to secure our backing sashing. All right, so remember that's the one with that 1/2 inch turned. To do this, you want to use your Roxanne's glue. So Roxanne's glue based, and I do, I've always used the other kind of bottle, the bigger bottle, but I always end up having it get clogged. Yeah, par for my course. But this one with this little squeezy bottle, the squeezy bottle is a little bit more expensive. To the best of my knowledge, you can't refill it. But what I like about it is that no matter how long it sits in my Notions tote, it doesn't seem to get clogged in the little skinny applicator tube here. All right. So we're just going to do dots of the Roxanne's glue and be sure to cap it. You don't want it to get clogged, right? And then you're going to bring this down, and this should cover the stitching line. All right. Now I will usually take this to the iron and get that glue to dry really, really fast. Now, I want you to know that this is not my first Quilt As You Go Easy Sashings project. I've done quite a few of them, so here's kind of a little bit of a review on the history of the Easy Sashings. So this was the first Easy Sashings Quilt As You Go book that I did, a little booklet. There's videos out there for it. I think they're all live videos possibly, but double check that. They're either in videos or live videos. And with this one, you were making a reversible quilt. One, I had this orange color on one side and then a purple lavender color. These were done in a stitch and flip method. So the majority of it was quilted in the process of making the blocks. And then you see the black is the easy sashings. Then I did this one. This is actually my most popular video. It was done as a live video. I did it in two parts. The first part was the stitch and flip quilt as you go log cabin. There isn't a book for that particular technique. You can see it on the video and you'll totally get it. It's a class that I teach when I travel too. So if you're interested in that, I love coming to teach the quilt as you go stuff. But what was really fun about this one is on the back of the quilt, I used fun novelty fat quarters for each block. Whereas on the quilt we're working on now, I used that fabric that was all coordinated. This was just really, really fun using these novelty fat quarters that I buy. And then with this, I also did a border. And I did a piano key border and actually a really fun faux mitered border on the corners. So you can see that in the videos. Then there was this one. This was one of the newer ones that I did, and this also is a stitch and flip. So in the process of making the block, you're also quilting the block. And so this is the Quilt As You Go pineapple log cabin. This was one of the first ones that I did that had cornerstones in the sashings. So pineapple log cabin, that booklet is available, ebook or booklet, hard copy available on my website. And then that's my friend Sarah. She took the class for the Quilt As You Go log cabin and sent me that picture, and I just thought that was awesome. The Happy Rainbow was another one that I did with the Quilt As You Go easy sashings, and that one again also used the cornerstones. And then this was the last book that I did, and this was Easy Sashings Techniques. So this had how to do just the sashings. It does not have the instructions for making those quilts. Those quilts are all separate books. So the big picture that you see there, that's my fractured glass book. And then I did it in an on-point easy sashings technique. And then the smaller diamond one, that's my English paper piecing by hand or by machine with 60-degree diamonds. And that is also covered in this book. So if you want any more, information on the history of the easy sashings. Now, I did not invent this. I saw it. One of the gals, Jan, in our guild showed us how to do it one time during a Zoom presentation during the pandemic. And it was a little table runner. And I just thought, oh my goodness, that's a really cool technique. I think this technique is phenomenal. It is so easy to accomplish. So I've showed you how to put these rows together. This is how the entire row goes together. So let's see this, okay? The rows are going to go together like this, putting the blocks. But because this quilt is set on point with the larger triangles, that's what I'm going to do next. So I'll be right back with that part. All right, so I took some time and got my pieces quilted for the setting and corner triangles. So if you're new to this whole designing on point, happens to be my very most favorite setting, and it is the idea of the blocks being not straight set, but on their points. When you do a block quilt that is on point, you're going to have setting triangles. These are the ones that are going to be on the top, bottom sides, and then the corner triangles, which you can just barely see in my shot. So the difference between them is the setting triangles have the straight of grain on the outside of the block, and then the two lines on the inside are the bias edges. Corner triangles have the straight of grain on the top and side with the bias edge in the middle. All right. So for this quilt, you first need to quilt your setting and corner triangles. So when there needs to be this many, you can just take a big piece of fabric. So in this case, if you take a 42-inch piece of fabric, backing, batting, and fabric on the top, and then quilt them. You can quilt them any way you like. I quilted mine with free motion, but if you wanted to stick with all the straight lines, you could certainly do just straight line grids on that. All right. And you wouldn't have to do it as a 42-inch piece. You could cut them down into, all right, so you end up needing 3 19-inch. So you could have 3 20-inch squares, so then you'd be able to square them down to 19, and 2 11-inch squares so that you could square them down to 10 for the corner triangles. This is kind of what I mean here. So this is my large square cut. Now this has already been quilted, top and bottom, just did a nice even meandering all over it. For the setting triangles on this quilt, you need a 19-inch square, 3 19-inch squares. Then you're going to take your long ruler and you're going to cut it on the diagonal once and twice. That will yield from each square 4 setting triangles. Remembering, and this is so important, and you'll accidentally do it the wrong way, and I'll show you when I'm actually putting it on the block what I mean. But this is the straight of grain. These are the bias edges. So this should technically go on the right side, left side, top, and bottom. In this case, because this is not a directional fabric on the front, you could switch that around, but I actually did use a directional fabric on the back. So looking at this, oh, I didn't put it, okay, here. I didn't put it back together correctly. So this, because the direction is going this way, these should be top and bottom, this should be side to side. Will I actually accomplish that? I don't know. It's quite possible. Anything can happen. So there's your setting triangles. The corner triangles, which are cut from a 10-inch, you are going to just cut those on the diagonal once. All right. And you only need 2 total squares because there's only 4 squares in the whole quilt, 4 corners in the whole quilt. So here's your corners. These are the set. This is the straight of grain up the triangle. The long edge is the bias edge. All right. So we have those set. So now you're going to take your blocks. Okay. These are the blocks. This is, I think, the equivalent of this row. All right, for the other side. So it's got 3 of the blocks. I've already put the easy sashings here, and I've prepared for the triangles. Okay, so here I have my triangles, and I put a little sticker here so I could try to remember which angle the triangle needed to go. So this is on the bottom of the quilt. Yep. So I need my triangle, I'm pretty sure, to go this way. I think so. All right, so let's center that up. Okay, so this is the bias edge, which also happens to be the short edge for the setting triangles. You see the long edge goes on the outside of the quilt, short edge goes in the quilt. So here you will attach it to the sashing that you already have, just like we did the other blocks, and you'd pin that all together. Then I'll come to my other side. Okay, so if this one is that way, then the other one will be, I had a sticker, but it came off, will be this way so that they, oh, I know what, I've got another way that I can show you that. So I'll add those setting triangles to that block. All right, the corners won't be done on this case until we're doing the rows together. But this is what the very first row looks like. So we've got here, block, setting triangle, setting triangle. So if we're looking what I just assembled, I have block, setting triangle, and setting triangle with the straight of grain here. So this would be on the quilt like that. That would be the top or bottom and the side this way. All right. Now I already did the sashings on here. I am going to recommend that you do the stitching down of the sashings, technically the quilting. You can see that you do that with each row, even when it's really small. So on the bigger rows, I would do 2 rows at a time or 2 blocks at a time. Like for this row here, I would put these 2 together and then quilt that little sashing strip. Then I'd add another one, quilt that sashing strip, add a triangle, quilt that sashing strip, which leads me to how I did it, and then you can do it any way that you want as long as it looks pretty in the end. I set up 2 sewing machines. So on my one sewing machine, I have my cotton thread that I'm doing the assembly with. So that's the thread that, the 50 weight cotton that I've done all my assembly with, because I want my sashings assembled with the cotton thread. But the quilting that I'd done on the sashings is the same thread that I used when I quilted the blocks, which were a polyester. So I don't want to have to be changing my threads in and out. So I get a sashing on, then I got to change it out to quilt it with another thread. Now you could quilt it all with the same thread, same as your piecing. But if you choose to do like I did, I set one machine up with my cotton thread and the other machine up with my quilting thread, that polyester in it. And for me, it just made it a little bit easier. All right. So you're going to finish your rows this way, this being row 1 or 7, I think. And then you've got the bigger rows to go, which means our next step is to attach the rows together. And for my demo's sake, I'm going to do it by adding the corner triangle to this. All right. So to prepare the sashings for here, I got to find this. Sorry about that, reaching through. To prepare the sashings for the rows in the quilt, and so if you're looking here, this is what I'm talking about. So the blocks went together with just a solid sashing, right? The rows, the sashing that's going to attach the rows is the one that has the cornerstones in it. Okay, so to do that most efficiently, I'll take a 12.5-inch wide strip of fabric, because that's the size that I cut my single sashings, 12.5. Although that doesn't look like 12.5, does it? Well, I've got to redo something because that is not 12.5 inches. Let's see, are these? Okay. I'm going to assume that they're going to be close enough, because then I'll just go back and fix mine up. So cut at the 12.5 inch, then add the 2-inch sashing with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you can cut these 2 inches. So I cut 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, right? And then assemble them all together. So this is the sashing for the attaching the rows. I'll put one solid square on the end, and then I have the sashing with the square that I cut out of this little piece. All right, it just means that you don't have to attach one little square to a long strip, one little square to a long strip. Just add the cornerstone to the strip and then cut it out that way, and then it's one less thing that you have to add. And then the backing is really just one piece, but I'm running very, very short on fabric. And since this, definitely because this is just a striped fabric, from this side you can't even see, well, slightly there, but don't look too close, okay? You can't really see that I've even pieced this. So this, you're going to piece one big long piece and then do the same folding. So I did the half fold, then folded it up a 1/2 inch and spray sized this. So now it's ready for the rows to put together. So let me get all my ducks in a row and I'll show you putting a row together. I do want to show you how these rows go together, because it can look a little bit odd when you're adding the rows with the cornerstones in them. You're going to press them to the sashings so that you can butt that seam. But do you see how this comes all the way out? Then I have my backing, just one big piece. And on the longer rows, it looks even a little bit odder. This cornerstone is sticking out quite a bit on both sides. That's the way it's supposed to be. After it's assembled, it'll be cut into a triangle, but I just want you to see how that is, and then I'll get a row ready to put together. All right, I have my rows ready to put together. So this is like the first corner row, if we look up here, where I've got the block and the 2 setting triangles. So I need to add a corner triangle to that. Then I have my next row, 3 blocks, 2 setting triangles, and we'll put that together. So that's what this is going to look like. So I've got this one on where I put the cornerstone, sashing cornerstone, and then here is my corner triangle. So I will attach that to that. I think you get the idea, right? Here, you got to make sure that you've already got these quilted. So I've already stitched down these two ends, which is why I like having the two machines like I talked about earlier. And then here is going to be my next row, matching up the sashings here, adding this. And then when you're doing this, let me show you a corner. There. This is where I was saying it might look odd that this is sticking out like this, but I want you to know that when this is assembled, so if I match up, ooh, I have got some threads here. Let me cut those off real quick. There. All right. So when this is stitched on, this will have that 1/2 inch, right? It'll look like this. So it almost looks like, ooh, there. Almost looks like this is a long rectangle. But what you'll do before you add your borders is you will trim the edge of the quilt to be a 1/2 inch past the points. So past this point and this point. We will line up our ruler so we're able to trim that with a 1/2 inch. Why a 1/2 inch? Because when we're putting our borders on, we will use the same easy sashings technique. For the borders, we're going to take and quilt our border sections, then put a sashing going all the way around and a that's how we're going to attach the border. So let me see if I can find the picture. Do I have a sample? All right. So like on this one, either one of those, when the quilt top is done, the center where all the blocks are, you will be trimming those edges to a 1/2 inch past those points. And you can kind of see those small little triangles on the ends there. Then your borders will be quilted separately, trimmed down to size, and then we'll use the same easy sashings technique to attach the borders and a cornerstone that can be a solid fabric like this one is all the blue. But you could even put a whole nother color in there. And I might try that on the small sample so that you'll be able to see. I won't have enough room on this table to show you assembling the borders on this big quilt, but I will do that on a smaller quilt, maybe even just a 1-block quilt. But the next session will be adding your borders. So thank you for watching. I hope that you are sharing the videos with your other quilty friends. Maybe they want to know how to do a fun project like this, or even just the easy sashings technique. Check out any of those videos and the other booklets that I told you about. So if piecing this block, these blocks, might be a little bit intimidating. Maybe you've never done anything that complicated, but you want to see how this easy sashings quilt as you go works. Well, try one of the other ones. The log cabin has the video to go along with it. The pineapple has the video and the books. The other ones have the videos and the books. So take a look at those. Maybe you try one of those first before you tackle piecing these very intricate blocks. I promise you, you are going to love the easy sashing quilt as you go. So I'll see you for our final episode, which will be episode 6. And with that, we will be putting on the borders. See you soon.